Hi, I'm Mike Waller, the winemaker at Calera Winery. I know we're all going through a weird, tough time together, and just let you know we're together and we're thinking about you in Japan and appreciate all the support you've been giving us for the last several years. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to Japan again to support the market. Well, I think the Japanese wine consumer is very sophisticated wine consumer. They really understand the world of wine, even more so than a lot of American consumers, in my opinion. I feel like they're well versed and knowledge, and I think Calera fits right into the lifestyle of wine drinking in Japan. Well, I mean, it wasn't until I really went to Japan that I figured this out. I mean, I've always loved Japanese food, but it was eating Japanese food in America, much different than realizing the everyday food that everybody eats. I think, to me, the wines, I think acid is something that just coerces or works well with these foods. I think our wines have tannin and structure that don't overpower the Japanese food, but really marry well with the food. So the 2019 vintage was a very interesting vintage. We got off to a really good start. It seemed like a very long winter for us. The rains came late, so we had a late bud break, but the spring temperatures came out and were really ideal. Harvest seemed to just really be prolonged. It took us a while to get through harvest and get into harvest. Overall, I think the yields were okay. Calera yields are never great, but they were much better than 2018. The wines right now are just coming alive and they're starting to taste really good. The 2020 vintage, we've had bud breaks, so everything's right now we're going through the process of seeing the vines start to really grow. I think so far, we had really early rains, I think, in December, and then really no rain up until the last couple of weeks. It was, not an ideal time for us to be stuck at home when it was raining so much. But we had nice rains, and now we have just fabulous temperatures, perfect sunshine, and we're getting into the upper 70s this week, so it looks pretty good. I'm gonna start off pouring the 2017 Josh Jensen selection. So this is the Chardonnay. So the Chardonnay, so Josh Jensen selection comes from some select vineyards in the Central Coast. Usually what we'll do is we make very specific lots from different vineyards in Central Coast, and I choose my favorite 3 lots or so to come up with this blend specifically for Japan. The 2017 has 4 different vineyards in it, actually. It's got the Biendecito vineyard, which is one of my favorites, the Wente vineyard out of Monterey, Letitia vineyard, and it's got a little bit of Mount Harlan. What I like about these wines, though, really is that they've got to be different than our Central Coast, our normal Central Coast. And the way we make them, and it really helps that I've been to Japan and I've gone and I've eaten a lot of the food and start to realize how these wines pair, so I can really pinpoint and focus making these wines for the Japanese market. I'm really trying to accentuate the acid profile on these wines. I don't want the big flabby Chardonnays to go into something like this. I want the really refined Chardonnay vineyards to go into these wines. So we really focus on the aromatics, the sharp, Meyer lemon. I'm not a big one with descriptors, but I can tell you that I know how it pairs well with food. The way that I like to look at it, like instead of like really using descriptors, I think it's more of a wine making style. That the way I look at it is I look for the sharp acid, right? Which with Chardonnay is usually, in that lemon, sometimes it's got some cut grass, not like Sauvignon Blanc, but it's got almost, I guess a lot of people will say like brioche, but it's got this kind of, almost bready type of thing. And then in the mouth, it's got a full coating. And in that coating, it's got this acid that runs right through it that carries this wine all the way back. So the finish is very, very long. Really, to me, the way I look at wine is what are the sensations? I like the sensation of wine more so than picking apart a wine and saying what was in it, because really I think wine is there for you to enjoy the full exposure of things and not just nitpick things apart. And by the way, this wine is lasting forever though. I mean, this thing just has a long finish. I think this 2017 is amazing. So the next wine we're tasting is the 2017 Josh Jensen Selection Pinot. And really, the way that we make this wine is very similar to how we make our Chardonnay, at least from how we pick the lots. Is I'm trying to pick through some of my favorite lots from Central Coast, and we always have a little bit of Mount Harlan that goes into this wine, and I think this really is what gives it kind of more of its structure and really differentiates between the Central Coast and this wine. We make it, most all of our wines really are made in a very old world style. We don't do a lot of manipulation. It's all native yeast fermented. The wines really just see a couple weeks in tank and then they go to barrel. This specific wine was aged for about 10 months and sees about 10% new French oak. Wow. So again, this 2017 Josh Jensen Selection Pinot, really trying to focus on the Japanese market because these are very specific for that market. This wine is super floral. This has got those real classic Pinot characteristics to it. I'm getting a lot of, this is where I'm going to say, hey, just on the nose, I'm getting a lot of like real ripe berry flavors, berry aromas, nice wine. Yeah, you guys are going to be happy with this wine. This is a fantastic buy for the price. This thing has full fruit characteristics throughout, but has almost that little Mount Harlan tinge where you get a little bit of the structure in the end to it, and it just goes on. Another wine that lingers for a long time.